This isn't technically part of this course. But there is one idea I'd like you to think about as you progress through your courses in this program, and that is the idea of creativity. What is it? How do you do it? How do you know if you have it? And whether or not you've considered yourself creative in the past, you will have to have a certain amount of creativity in this industry to be successful. But like a lot of things, it's just a skill that you can learn. Ken Robinson is one of the world's foremost experts on creativity, and here's what he has to say about creativity.
I define it as the process of having original ideas that have value. And all three of those terms to me are important. It's a process, it's not an event. Sometimes ideas come fully formed, but more often than not, creativity and the development of original ideas evolves through various phases. Often the idea you start with is not the one that you end up with, or the original idea gets changed and elaborated in all kinds of ways that are a result of the process of working on it. I think that we all have a potential for creativity. We're born with it. If you're a human being, it comes with the kit. And to say that people are born with the capacity for creativity, and we all are, I believe is true. It's equally true to say, though, that very many people never develop these powers properly. They don't understand them, and they don't acquire them or refine them any more than everybody on earth is literate.
So Ken Robinson's definition of creativity is a process of having original ideas that have value. We're going to break that down a little bit. We're going to start with the word value. What that usually means is, does the idea or the solution have worth to somebody, or does it meet the task that was set? In this industry, that usually means, does your video communicate the message you want to send? Does it say what you want it to? Or, more frequently, does it say what your client wants it to say? And since you're generally speaking for a client, this isn't really about self-expression. In case you don't know who Charles Ames is, he's a very famous designer from the 1940s and 50s. He designed really cool stuff that you probably recognize from shows like Mad Men. The other thing that Robson said was that creativity was the process of having original ideas. That process has a name, it's called synthesis.
This video is brought to you by iStock by Getty Images. Check them out at iStock.com. On January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs took to the stage knowing he was about to reshape the technological landscape.
Every once in a while, a revolutionary product comes along that changes everything.
And it was a revolutionary product not because of what it did, but because of how you operated it.
But what we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen.
The original iPhone was a hybrid handheld device, much like the other, rather homely gadgets of the era. So the iPhone's features didn't set it apart. What set it apart was its input technology, multi-touch. And despite Steve Jobs' sweeping claim,
we have invented a new technology called multi-touch.
This was actually a technology that had been developing for decades. However, Apple's implementation was unprecedented. They put multi-touch on a pretty affordable handheld device, not an expensive table-like contraption, which is the path others were on. And this innovation opened up a vast frontier of possibilities. It gave Apple a blank slate, literally. The challenge was how to orient users with a device that was pretty much nothing but screen. Firstly, the interface was grounded in a couple smartphone cliches, rows of application icons, and a status bar with battery life, signal strength, and the time. This was basically how most smartphones worked. But from there on, most of the iPhone's interface influences came from outside the realm of smartphones, and many came from real-world objects we already understood. The device lock was like a latch, complete with a lock sound. The keyboard tap animation was modeled after a typewriter, and there was a clicking sound to further the sensation. The wheel for setting dates and times was like a slot machine or an odometer. Album covers flipped over to show the track listings like an actual record or CD. Swiping through images was like flipping through book pages. Emailing photos tucked them into a message as if you were literally mailing a print. There were lots of switches and lots and lots and lots of buttons, often colored like traffic signals to imply stop or go. And with its visual style, the iPhone labored to give the illusion of depth. There was lots of beveling, embossing, shadows, and gloss effects that simulated the qualities of three-dimensional objects.
So the process of synthesis, or being original or creative, is combining or connecting things in your own way. But there are only so many combinations of things. If I have just 3 letters, there are only, certain numbers of ways I can combine those. If I add another one, there are more ways I can combine them, or more combinations I can have, and so on. If I keep going, if I have more things, I can come up with more combinations. The point here is that the process of synthesis needs things to draw on. You need to have inputs to make new combinations from. So you have to keep trying new things, and that in itself, you should find inspiration for new connections. Of course, the creative process is a process. When you try new things, sometimes things aren't going to be as perfect the first time, and it's okay. Here's Ed Catmull, the president of Walt Disney Pixar Animation Studios, on failure.
Whether you're working with technical or the artistic creative, the fact is you're doing something brand new that hasn't been done. And that's a mindset, and it's not an easy one for people to get, because it turns out whether it's making movies or technology, you can use your expertise to make a variant of what was done before. But creativity means you're doing something which really hasn't been done before. And so you need to open it up so people can do that. So there's this notion that you try to make it safe for people to fail, which is something like they agree with in principle, but most people don't do that because people don't like to look bad or they don't like to fail. So while they'll say the words, the fact is they don't make it easy for mistakes to happen. And so we're very conscientious about making it so that mistakes really aren't thought of as bad. They're just learning. If you think about it, the only reason you make mistakes is because you don't know something. And if you're doing something new, then by definition you're doing something that you don't know. So if you try to say, well, it's very important not to make any mistakes, you're saying it's very important not to do something new. But most people can't make that connection. But it's really important to realize that at every level, whether it's small or big, that you need to allow things to go wrong, with the idea being that it's better to fix mistakes than try to prevent all of them.
So of course, inherent in that message is the idea of repetition. Doesn't work the first time, try it again. Okay, so creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value to somebody. So to be creative, you have to try new stuff, you have to learn from it, and then try it again. And I encourage all of you to do that throughout this program.